Okay guys, so in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make this really beautiful light box using a Silhouette machine or a Cricut. I personally have a Silhouette Cameo, but obviously if you have experience using your Cricut, you can probably just translate these skills over to Cricut. I made this as a gift for my friend Erica Diocampo. I will have the video of her unboxing this linked in the description box below. And let's get into the tutorial. So for supplies, you'll obviously need some sort of die cut machine, be it a Silhouette or a Cricut, a shadow box. I got mine from Ikea years ago. I don't remember how much it costs, but they do have them at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, all those places. You'll need white cardstock. I do suggest looking for some cardstock that's big enough to fit your shadow box. My box was 9 by 9 and a regular sheet of cardstock is only 8.5 inches. I do have a way of troubleshooting it, but obviously if you can avoid that, it's easier. You'll also need white pipe cleaners, a hot glue gun, hot glue sticks, a light strip, which I have linked in the description box below, and some scissors. So you're going to start off by making two boxes to create kind of a picture frame. The outer box needs to be, for my box it was 8.5 inches by 8.5 inches because the shortest side of the cardstock that I was using, that's like the biggest that I could make it. Now my frame is 9 by 9 and I'm going to show you guys how I tried to fix that later on. But you're going to take this frame that you've created and you're going to copy and paste it 3 more times. So you need 4 total. If you decide to do more than 4 layers, then you'll need however many you're making of layers. So my layers were Steamboat Willie, Sorcerer Mickey, the partner statue, and fireworks. So I just Google image searched those things and added the word silhouette to find the image that I wanted. So start off by taking your first image and using the trace tool. I traced over Sorcerer Mickey and then I'm kind of shrinking him down to a size that I think will work. And then I'm overlapping him with the frame and then selecting the frame and the Sorcerer Mickey, and I'm welding those two together. So I'm just selecting weld and it kind of submerges them together so that they'll cut all as one piece. So this is the first layer that I'll be doing, and on the second layer I take my second frame and I repeat these steps. So I'm going to go ahead and do, sorry I'm kind of jumping around because Sorcerer Mickey is actually layer number 2, but for this one I'm tracing over the fireworks, deleting the original image, and then I'm moving the fireworks over. The fireworks were a little tricky because I didn't want them to stay in this pattern of 3, so I did have to release the compound path, and then I went in and had to like separate each firework, if that makes sense. So I pasted in another one just to see if maybe I could make it work, but again I just didn't really like how it was so symmetrical. So oh, and by the way, for this last layer, I did delete the inside portion of the frame because I'm going to cut these out on one solid sheet of paper. This is the only layer that you don't need the framing on. That's the only part that you really have to think about with this, is like you don't want to cut out too much to where the paper won't stand up well inside. And make sure that you're using cardstock and not copy paper, because this will not work with copy paper. So this is me just separating the fireworks. I'm just, holding down shift and selecting the entire area of the firework and then moving it where I like it, and then resizing them as I see fit. So next you're going to want to check how the back layer looks with a top layer. So I drug over my Sorcerer Mickey layer and just to see how it's going to look when it's all put together. You're going to want to check this every time you do a layer because you don't want things to be like crossing over each other and blocking each other. I did try to leave an opening in the center because I knew I was going to have the castle with the partner statue cut out of it, and so I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to block the fireworks. So now I'm moving both of these layers. Oh, by the way, before you move the layers over, I would highly suggest making it all one compound path, because then when you want to move the layers back and forth, you're not misplacing anything. And I'm just repeating the same steps. So I'm using my trace tool, tracing the castle and the partner statue, and then moving it over to my next frame. So I did have to drag over both my layers because I wanted to make sure that this sized up well with both of them. And I did kind of debate with myself where to put it, but I did decide at the top And then this is where I kind of decided to add in something that I hadn't originally planned. So in order to give it like a depth perception and also to allow more light to come through, I did decide to do like a brick layout underneath the castle. So I started off by doing one of those rounded rectangles underneath it, and then I'm going to weld the castle to the rounded rectangle to make it look kind of like it's sitting on top of ground. And then I went ahead and made that a compound path, and now I am taking this image of bricks that I found on Google, and I took 2 of them because it wasn't large enough to use as just one, and I'm actually overlapping them, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my trace tool over both of these and trace the bricks. I don't actually think that I did this in the most efficient manner, so if you have a better way, use your better way. Because see, what ended up happening is like I had a line going down for 5 or 6 of my bricks, so I ended up deleting those bricks and then copying a brick without a line in it and like pasting it in its place. Again, you probably have a better way of doing this, but I problem solve as I go, guys. So yeah, so that's what it looked like once I had fixed it. I did leave the broken brick in place because I wanted to make sure that I had the alignment perfect. I didn't want to like put the brick down and it looks like it's like a millimeter off, because that would drive me crazy. Okay, and then once you have all of your bricks fixed, you're gonna go ahead and make this a compound path once more and take it over to your image and paste it in. I did have to shrink mine down a little bit, and then I believe I had to delete the bottom row because obviously I didn't want to lose the shape of the bricks by like squishing it too much. So I just kind of shrunk it down a little bit, and then I deleted the bottom row of bricks. And then I went ahead and made this entire thing a compound path. Make sure you do that because this layer in particular will be really annoying if you lose like all the bricks if they're not all combined. So I just checked my 3 layers that I've done, and I'm moving on to the very last layer, which is a very simple one, which is Steamboat Willie, the OG. So I did the same thing, traced Steamboat Willie, and then this tracing, I don't know why I picked this one because it's got words on the bottom, but I think it was just the best image I could find. So I did have to erase the bottom words, which kind of left a little indent in the steering wheel. I don't know what that's called. So I'm moving him over, and originally I put him on the right. Later on, I'm not sure if this is going to be in the video just for time's sake, but I did end up switching Steamboat Willie to the left, and I put Sorcerer Mickey on the right and just inverted the images. I don't know why, but I think I just thought that it looked better that way. But I did the same thing. I added him kind of against the frame, and then I welded him to the frame so that it's all one piece. And now I'm just checking one final time on all my layers. I did decide to change the colors as I was working just to try to make it a little easier for you guys to see. Hopefully this helps. If not, I guess that's okay too. But yeah, this is kind of where I started moving Steamboat Willie around, because when he was right up against the side of the frame, he was kind of disappearing in the image. So I did scoot him over to only be attached to the bottom. But again, I think I ended up switching his side. So you are now going to get to the point where you are cutting everything out. So make sure that you select cardstock on your cut preferences, change your blade setting if necessary, and then go ahead and cut everything out. I will say I had to up my blade setting because my blade has gotten a little bit dull, but obviously it just depends on your machine. I highly suggest doing a test cut before you start. But the good news is if you bought a pack of cardstock, you've got plenty to try on. So this is just a helpful tip that I have for you guys. Whenever you cut something out on your Silhouette or your Cricut and it's like these little tiny pieces. You can use a lint roller to like peel off the tiny pieces that got stuck to the mat. I will say this is like a good lint roller, and I actually prefer the Dollar Tree ones because the stickiness isn't as sticky, so they don't like get stuck on the mat when you're trying to do this technique, but it does work very effectively. This is the light strip that I'll be using to create this effect, and I actually got mine off Amazon. However, I went to Five Below, so if you guys have a Five Below, they actually sell these for $5 there, and they're the exact same thing. So I would suggest getting it there because it is cheaper than Amazon. But I will have the link in the description box below for you if that's what you prefer. So you're going to want to take what you cut out with your silhouette machine, so each of these frames, and you're going to need some white pipe cleaners, a hot glue gun, and something to cut the pipe cleaners with. So start with the first one just by laying down a thin line of hot glue and pressing down the pipe cleaner. This first one I did not trim before I did this, and it is easier if you trim them first, which is what I learned on my second one. So go ahead and take your next one, measure it to the length that you need, snip off the excess, and then apply again a thin line of hot glue and press down the pipe cleaner. What these are going to do is be able to create a space between each of the layers, because if you just lay down flat paper, it's not going to have that sort of 3D effect that you're wanting in your Lightbox. There's other ways to do this, but I have found pipe cleaners to be the least expensive and honestly the easiest way because they're kind of already ready to go. So now you are going to take that light strip that you had, and this is the part where the USB cord kind of plugs into the actual light strip. So when you're placing down your light strip, you do have to be careful because you want to plug it into that USB cord first, because you don't want that part to be like caught, if that makes sense. Like you want to have space for it in your frame. So you need to account for that at the beginning and not try to do that at the very end. Now, this light strip does have an adhesive backing that is 3M. If you wanted to hot glue your light strip down, you absolutely could if you're worried about it budging. I wasn't too worried about it, and I kind of did like the fact that you could take it off, because then if something happened to the light strip in this process, you could easily remove it and use a new one. So just go down and firmly press down wherever you have your light strip. Again, you want this to be at the very edge of the frame. So this is the insert for my frame, and I made sure that it was bumped up right against the edge. My light strip was a little bit too long, so in the instructions it specifically says this is cut, like you can cut it, as long as you do it on these copper ovals, if that makes sense. Make sure you read the instructions for your specific light strip, because I don't want to tell you guys something that's not true for your light strip. And then plug it in, make sure that it's working. Mine is. And then you also can test out that remote if you're wanting to. So for this next step, this is how I covered up the gap that's created since the cardstock is a little bit too small for my frame. So I went back into my silhouette design and I basically just drew another picture frame shape with two rectangles. And instead of cutting it out of paper, I cut it out of vinyl. And then I just used transfer tape and placed it onto the glass. This is not my favorite brand of vinyl, so I am absolutely not giving you guys the link to it. But obviously use a vinyl of your preference. This just helped to cover that gap. So again, this is optional. If the gap doesn't bother you, you don't need to worry about this step. But if it does, this is kind of the fix that I had for covering it up. And then you can place your glass back into your shadow box. Alright, so I'm starting out with my first layer, making sure that my pipe cleaners are facing up toward me. Then I realized that I hadn't inserted the, I don't know what to call this, the frame part inside the frame. I hope I'm making sense, guys, but the part with the light strip on it needs to go in first. Then go ahead and start putting in your paper layers, making sure that the pipe cleaner side is facing upward so that you get that 3D effect. So next I am placing Sorcerer Mickey inside as the next layer, and then I'm doing the castle with the bricks. And then before I put in the last page, I'm actually taking the back of my frame and I'm going to glue some cardstock down on the back. Now it doesn't cover all the way, like you're going to see the bottom still shows that cardboard, but it's okay because the it's not going to show through the firework page. So then I'm just going to go ahead and cut off the excess following the line of this. And then my firework page is inside, and now I'm placing on the back. This really brightened up the lights. Like, I highly, highly suggest gluing paper onto the back. And now I'm just closing up my frame, and this is what it looks like all done. This is what it looks like lit up, and wait for it. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the lights off and show you guys what that looks like, because it is magical. I hope you guys liked this tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments below. I do have the materials I use listed in the description box, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!